Good morning and welcome to Free for All Friday. Happy Friday, Greg Hansen. How are you doing?
I'm doing super. Friday's here. Weekend's ahead of us. This is good.
Right on. Dave Sullivan, how are you?
Glad to be here for the first day of summer. Of course, we don't notice the difference. We don't notice the difference.
It's also, Brian, it's the longest day of the year today.
I thought that was on the 21st.
No, it's today.
Today.
Wow, I've been thinking wrong my whole life.
No, today, I think
it's the summer solstice.
All right. So my name is Brian McMillan. I'm the publisher of the Palm Coast Observer newspaper and filling in today for David Ayers. He doesn't usually tell me why he's gone, so I don't know. Maybe Mark, our illustrious producer, knows, but it's a secret to me. But either way, I'm happy to be able to take the and I forgot to make my camera. Okay, good. Make my camera follow me. So yeah, if you're watching or if you're listening on WNZF, welcome. If you are streaming on YouTube or on Facebook, welcome. Today we're going to talk to two of our elected officials. Greg Hansen is the Flagler County Commissioner, and I've got a little bit of your bio here. Let's see. Let me read something. Greg Hansen served our country in the U.S. Navy honorably for 27 years.
Yes, sir.
And commanded two separate warships, the USS Antietam and the USS McCluskey. All around the world? Like, were you stationed in a particular place?
Well, the ships were on the West Coast. The Antietam was out of Long Beach, and the McCluskey was out of San Diego. So we deployed and steamed in the Pacific and Persian Gulf. Mm-hmm. And McCluskey, I did a full tour of the Persian Gulf, escorting tankers. And Antietam, we just did the Western Pacific.
Very good.
So it was exciting.
But Dave Sullivan has you beat. 28 years in the Navy, 27 to 28. You know, this is a lot of experience, but I guess Dave wins.
No, well, not exactly. Greg had a lot more combat experience than I had. I spent my time on aircraft carriers most of the time. So I always had a nice bed to sleep in and food.
Well, very good. Either way, 28 years in the Navy, 27 years in the Navy. It's amazing to think about the stories that you guys probably have and the experience that you gained, and now you are using all that experience to do this, which gives you all kinds of grief, I'm sure. Why are you guys? Why don't you just retire and take it easy instead of taking on these big jobs of serving in the community in the way that you do? Greg, I know you've said before that you love your job as the county commissioner. What is it about it that makes you?
Well, it goes back to why I wanted to do it in the first place. I looked at first of all, I really liked Frank Meeker. Mm-hmm. I thought Frank was a superb county commissioner, and then he passed away, and that slot was open. And I had a long chat with Linda, and I said, that's a job I can do because I like to work with people, and I like to fix things, and I like to provide leadership, and I like to do those kind of things. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to put my name in the hat for that. And she said, yeah, go for it. So I put my name in the hat, and Governor Scott picked me. So
the rest is history.
Yeah.
It's been stressful?
I would say not stressful, but occasionally disappointing.
Occasionally disappointing. Why is that?
Well, when you see something that should be done
and you can't make it happen.
It
was a little different in the Navy. If you said to people to do stuff, they had to do it, right?
Well, I was in command. Yeah, if you said left full rudder, it turned.
So Greg Hansen represents District 2 in northeast Flagler County, which includes the Hammock and areas bounded by I-95 and the ocean, Beverly Beach, north of the county line. So the reason I read that is because I know you've also mentioned before to me that because those areas are unincorporated north of is Beverly Beach in your territory as well?
No.
Okay, so
just the northern boundary as far as Pines starts.
So everywhere in your zone where you represent, there is no other government body.
And the Outer Banks, yes. I call myself kind of their mayor because I'm the only one they have.
The county commission, that's the only elected official
out there. Yeah.
Although the all the county commissioners represent everywhere.
That's true. We're elected at large, and we all represent the whole county.
Yeah,
really
same thing with the city council.
Right.
Yeah, roughly. A little bit different. The mayor of Palm Coast actually is elected not by district. He can be wherever he wants to live
Right,
in Palm
yeah.
Coast.
You can
run.
You can run from wherever you want.
Right. Whereas, right.
But they all represent everyone, and everyone.
The
everyone
mayor does.
Everyone who is in. Everyone who's in.
I'm District 3 City Council.
Yeah.
But when you run for that office, you run across all of Palm Coast.
So everyone in Palm Coast can vote for or against every other city council member. That's kind of what I was getting at. Yeah. Whereas in Volusia and Ormond Beach, for example, they do have zones, and you can only vote for that one commissioner or that, whatever. So I think that's pretty interesting difference, and kind of I'd be curious like how that affects how do you feel like you're representing the whole county, or that you have to stick up for that specific zone more?
I'd say both.
Yeah,
I would say both. Yeah.
Very good. So today we're going to talk.
The ultimate reason it's done that way, you wouldn't want all the county commissioners to come from the same district. You want represented across. So that's the reason that you run across. For instance, you wouldn't want all the officers coming from District 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the reason.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think the way we have it works great. So today we're going to talk about the beach. I have my cheat sheet here, which is my copy of the Palm Coast Observer. We're going to kind of walk through some of the news items of the week and get your guys' perspective on it. So it's kind of like, I kind of see it as kind of like the Grumpy Old Men episode, and I'm including myself in that because now we're going to welcome a younger guest, Sam Greco, to tell us about what's going on with the state, our Florida House of Representatives. Sam Greco, thank you so much for joining us by phone.
No problem. Thanks, Brian. Good to hear your voice. How are you?
Very good. Yeah, thanks for being on Free for All Friday. If you're just joining us, we have Greg Hansen and Dave Sullivan in the studio. I'm Brian McMillan, and filling in for David Ayers on Free for All today. So the state budget, it's a 105-day session, $115 billion budget. So what's next? Now Governor Ron DeSantis has to decide what he's going to pass and veto. Is that right, Sam?
That's right. So on Monday, just shy of midnight, we passed the budget in the House and Senate, and it's now on the governor's desk. In Florida, the governor has line item veto authority, so he can and will go through the budget line by line, item by item, and decide what he wants to sign into law and what he does not.
So is there still a lot of lobbying going on?
Absolutely. So my focus has now turned to making sure that the governor's office is familiar with the projects that matter to District 19, that they understand the importance of those projects, and that ultimately they can make it through with the governor's signature.
Very good. So speaking of those projects, I'm gonna read a little excerpt from. There's a story from Flagler Live recently about how the budget impacted locally. So Palm Coast and Flagler County in the past. So I'll just read it specifically. In contrast with the previous 2 years, Palm Coast and Flagler County's haul in special appropriations was very small compared to more than $100 million they received last year. Legislators approved $2.5 million this year for a holding tank or equalization tank for Palm Coast's wastewater system, which will significantly alleviate overflow pressure in its wastewater treatment plant 1. Legislators also approved $2.5 million allocation to help upgrade that plant for a total of $5 million. The city also got $125,000 for a planned YMCA in Town Center, money to be used toward permitting. Bunnell and Flagler Beach got no special appropriations. So obviously that's a big difference in the total amount of money that's coming to this district. Why do you think that is the case, Mr. Greco?
Yeah, well, there's a few reasons for that. First of all, as we've talked about before in this show, and certainly as I've spoken about and Senator Leak has spoken about elsewhere, this is a more constrained budget than we've passed over the last 5 or so years. The reason for that is a fewfold. First, projected slowing revenue in Florida and a projected budget deficit at the previous spending level. Over the past 5 years, we've enjoyed the ability to spend a significant amount of money in Florida, that some of which came from the federal government flowing down through COVID emergency funding. Other amounts of money that we had an influx of by virtue of an increased number of individuals moving into the state of Florida, which has stabilized. So for those reasons, there was a need to spend less money in this budget. Additionally, the Florida legislature this year reduced the amount of spending overall from last year, moving more funds into the state's reserves and rainy day fund. And we're one of the first states in history outside of a recession or economic calamity or other external force to unilaterally decide that we want to spend less money, leave more money in the pockets of taxpayers, and set money aside for potential rough water in the future. And I'm sure we'll have an opportunity in a moment here to talk about the tax cuts that we've included as part of this budget. But those reasons that I mentioned are why this budget and these member projects are significantly more constrained around the state.
Gotcha.
That's something we knew from the beginning. We are very proud of the amount of money that we have in the budget. There's about $13 million in the budget going to District 19. That is not a small sum when compared to what some other districts historically have received in the past. So we think that's a good representation. We did not get everything funded that we wanted to. I know Commissioner Hanson's here, and we had a project that we were really hoping to get through for the county government that didn't make it through at the last moment, and we tried to resurrect it, but the train had moved too far. But we nonetheless, we were very proud of the project we did get funded. So that $13 million represents the member-led appropriations that I spearheaded. There is also a large amount of money in the budget that is coming to Flagler County, to somewhere in the county that are not what we call member-led projects, that are rather other projects in the budget that will directly impact the county, so we'll see that money as well.
Okay, very good. Yeah, it'll be great to get kind of like the final full picture of that once things are actually passed, and hopefully, I know I think some people think of it as bad luck to talk too much about it before the governor actually signs it. But yeah, thank you for advocating for our district in Tallahassee. And you mentioned the tax relief that's coming. Well, first of all, you talked about putting more money aside for the rainy day, which, literally in Florida, I mean, we could very well have hurricanes and everything every year. And so is that mostly why that money is being set aside in case there are, and maybe there's, it's a little bit uncertain what's going to happen with federal funding when it comes to emergencies?
Well, the rainy day fund gives us flexibility to use in a variety of externalities that we can't necessarily predict. What the issues you mentioned are possible times when you might want to dip into that fund. But moreover, it allows the state to have stability should revenues decline due to economic issues, due to a recession, due to other economic issues in the future, and having a substantial rainy day fund, which we have in Florida, it's around $47 billion, and we're putting $3 billion into it this year. That amount of money, will allow the state to have stability no matter what type of rough weather we might face in the future, whether that's literal or otherwise.
Very good. And what about the tax relief? I saw in one story $1.3 billion of tax relief. Where is that coming from? or in what way are we going to have tax relief? How would people feel it?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's a variety of tax cuts in this plan. Some are temporary, some are recurring. What we've done that will most directly impact the pockets of consumers, we've extended and expanded a number of our sales tax holidays. We've added additional items to the permanent no sales tax list. Some of those are safety and resiliency items, like fire extinguishers, for example. And we have also eliminated permanently in Florida the business rent sales tax. This was a tax that was causing significant financial strain on Florida's small businesses and was making Florida uniquely economically non-competitive. In a state that is in so many ways the best state in America to do business, we were the only state in the country that charged sales tax on business rent. And we've, over the past several years, the legislature has lowered that amount down from 6% to 2.5%. With this budget, we've eliminated it permanently. And that will have a significant tangible impact to the small businesses in Flagler County and beyond.
Yeah, this is, so we're talking about not just benefiting like big corporations, but like all the little mom and pop kind of businesses.
Anybody who's renting land, or renting a property to operate their business and paying rent, was paying sales tax on that rent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. So, what about the property tax debate? Maybe if you have any kind of what's your stance on that? I know there was some discussion about trying to, maybe do something totally, revolutionary, do away with it or do something dramatic. But where do you stand on that? Do you think that there is that's still a potential in the future? I know it wasn't like that idea wasn't really brought to fruition this year, but do you think that there's still some discussion about that happening?
There is still discussion about that happening. Everybody, the legislature, the governor's office, local government, we all acknowledge that the Constitution requires, prohibits state government from unduly interfering with local government's ability to levy property taxes. So we don't have the ability, not the legislature or the governor has the ability unilaterally from Tallahassee to say, Flagler County, you're no longer going to assess property taxes. Any significant change to the property tax landscape will take a constitutional amendment. There's perhaps some things on the margin that could be done from Tallahassee, but real significant change to eliminate, limit, reduce, otherwise modify Florida's property tax environment requires a constitutional amendment. So that is an ongoing conversation. The House has set up a select committee to study the issue and propose potential constitutional amendments for the November 2026 ballot. The Senate is also looking at this issue. The governor's office has been studying this issue and making proposals as well. So where those proposals go will be something that we'll see much more clearly over the summer and as we get into the next legislative session, and whether and what proposals make it to the 2026 ballot certainly will be part of the main part of that conversation. I do anticipate that we'll see some constitutional amendments on the ballot regarding property tax. What they are, how dramatic they are, is I think far too early to say at this time.
Very good. Well, that's definitely a fascinating issue to watch and has big impact on local, but also a major philosophical kind of idea to not tax your own property every year. So it's fascinating to me. Commissioner Hansen, do you have anything you want to add as we got Mr. Greco on the phone?
Yeah, Sam, the only thing that really bothers myself and my constituents that I talk to about the property tax is, so what if you put it on the ballot, and I think everybody would vote for it, But then what replaces it? How does Flagler County and Palm Coast and all our cities, where do we get the funding to fund our business to keep our county and cities viable? Because that's you've seen the rack up. Flagler County is number one and the most reliant on ad valorem taxes. So if you take that away from us, then how do we pay for what we do every day, our day-to-day operation?
I certainly am familiar with that statistic as well, and it's definitely something that as I look at this issue is in my mind, because we do have a county that is heavily reliant on ad valorem taxes, and we're not the only one. There are other counties that heavily rely on ad valorem taxes. There are fiscally constrained counties who have a very difficult time balancing their books in the absence of property tax. So it's certainly a very, very critical part of this conversation and very central to it. And I would, definitely, again, say that this conversation and then the committee work that's ongoing is at a very early stage, and there certainly aren't, clear proposals now, and what those proposals look like, whether they're somewhat marginal or significant, will be something that we'll have to continue to work on in time. But that's not lost on me at all. And certainly we have critical services that the county government, local government are providing: police, fire, emergency services. So making sure that those can continue to be provided is absolutely critical and something that is very much on my mind.
Mr. Sullivan?
And Sam, Dave Sullivan, first, thank you for all your efforts to get that money to the city for the plant, for the wastewater equipment and plant, and the YMCA, which is a really good addition to the county if we can push that through and make that happen. But echoing what Greg Hansen said concerning ad valorem taxes, they are critical to our county and city making it into the future. There has been a push in the last 9 years in office, 8 years with the county and now a year with the city of Palm Coast. There has been a regular beat coming out of the state legislature to take away our capabilities to run the government. As a lot of people will say, at the local area, whether county or city, it's where the rubber meets the road and where we really apply a lot of the funding that comes in. It would be very difficult for us to go on providing the services we now do if something like doing away with property taxes occurred. I guess we'd have to go to things like sales tax and other methods of funding, but it is a concern, especially in counties our size.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I appreciate that. And again, as we study this issue, making sure that we that nothing impacts the ability of counties and cities to provide the critical government resources that we count on them for, that we expect of them, is central to the conversation. Definitely look forward to talking with you both more about it and your colleagues more about it as the committee really picks up steam over the summer and we get into get towards the next legislative session in the fall. But certainly those concerns and those needs of the county and the city are very important to me.
Very good. Thank you again, Representative Greco, and thank you for serving our country. We know we're talking to two longtime Navy veterans in the studio here, and I know you served as well. So thank you for that, and thank you so much for joining us. Any other final thoughts you have for us?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you all today. So thank you, and I hope everybody has a great weekend.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Okay.
All right. So, again, to recap, $2.5 million from the state is on the governor's desk to help with Palm Coast's equalization tank, a holding tank for the wastewater treatment system. and another $2.5 million to upgrade the plant. So those are significant. That would help with our utilities.
Just to put that money in perspective,
Yeah.
when it comes to the utility system in Palm Coast, just prior to me coming on to the council again, the city council agreed to major funding for our utility system, whether it be stormwater, wastewater, or water that you drink, and the plants associated with it, piping and everything else. So in the next 5 years, we're looking at spending upwards of $700 million
Right.
to improve all those systems. So anything we can get from the state to help is fine, but we're facing some serious funding and building operations to keep our utility system going.
$700 million here, $700 million there. Pretty soon you're talking about pretty serious money, right? That's like
a lot of it will be
quote.
bonded. A lot of it will be bonded.
Right.
But in any event, it's a lot of money.
The $100 million that was received last year, I assume that is including the Loop Road funding,
I
which
believe
is the bulk of that, and
right.
that's kind of a state priority project.
Right.
Anyway, but it definitely will have a big impact.
But just
locally.
to ask Greg, didn't after the budget went through, wasn't there some additional money provided from the state to the county towards the end of the process? I thought
Not this year. We got zero this year.
But the previous year. I thought there was some money
we
for.
did, as Brian pointed out, we did very well last year.
Yeah.
We did very well.
Yeah. So
we got. I think we had 5 projects. And we got 3 of them funded. Mm-hmm. We got the fire stations.
Well, there's also I can it'll be interesting to you can't really fault the state for wanting to increase reserves. I can kind of feel like that's a wise thing to do, generally speaking. What I wasn't planning on talking about this, but like, what are the reserves like in the county and city? Do you know, kind of off the top of your head, like where we stand?
Yeah, our goal was to have 2/12 in the reserves, and we're approaching 3/12. So we're constantly big by 12. So everybody understands that's 3 months,
A month worth of funding. Gotcha.
funding, and so we're almost at 3/12.
Okay.
And that gives us a pretty good little cushion, just in case.
Well, one of the facts that's kind of hard to understand, but as far as the city goes, the city of Palm Coast has no debt, but the utility department is where all the debt is. But our reserves in the city are solid.
Yeah, this is something that you hear a lot. There's a lot of people who have at city meetings over the years really laid hard on the city and criticized the city for we have all this debt, but it's the utility department. Right. It's not necessarily the general fund. So that is different.
The city has no debt.
Yeah, that still may not appease people who are concerned about that, but it's kind of like most people owe something on their house, for example. Like, I don't know if that's really analogous or not, but
If I could
go ahead, Greg.
add one more comment, and Dave will remember this because he was there when we did it. We routinely had to borrow money to finish out the fiscal year,
right,
to pay salaries and all that. And 3 years ago, maybe it was 2, I think it was 3 years ago, the county commissioners, Dave included, we fixed that with the reserves. We've been steadily putting reserves in there, and because borrowing that money to fund the government for a month and sometimes 2 months was very expensive. Paying the interest rate.
Yeah, just because the way the budget in the fiscal year.
the way it worked out. Yeah. So we haven't had to do that in 3 years, and that was a major accomplishment, I think. So because we did it for years.
Yeah.
So.
Very good. I remember back in the Craig Coffey era, I think he explained all that to me a long time ago. So again, for those just joining us, we've got Dave Sullivan, a city council member, and Greg Hansen, the county commissioner, here on Free for All Friday. So just to kind of like review, we're talking about, he used to be on the county. Let's kind of paint the picture a little bit. So Dave Sullivan was elected to the Flagler County Commission in 2016, reelected in 2020, served through November 2024, and then it was just off to the sunset, right?
Right.
Until there's a vacancy in the city council and you're appointed. So I know we've talked about this before, but so now you're you're stuck for another couple of years, right? Until the rest of the term
stuck. As we were talking before, I think we all have obligations as citizens to do what we can to help things in general, and so I felt like I've always done that. I did my 28 years active duty. Then I worked for a corporation for 12 years.
One more year than Greg Hansen did. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to comment. He knows what I'm going to say. What I'm about to say.
I made the point. but in any event, and then decided to retire to Florida. Got involved in politics and ran for office. Won. I've been head of the Navy League for St. Augustine, Palm Coast. I think service is important for all of us to think, and it has to do. I was thinking of the word you talked about, patriotism. I think it's respect. Respect for your family, respect for for God and the church and the Constitution, and then the things that happen to you in life, your experiences, all that you should always show respect. Respect for people who have a different view than you have. If you go through life kind of with those thoughts, I think you end up doing what we're doing. You do what you can do. We all can't be president of the United States, but we can help along the way.
Yeah, I did want to talk today about patriotism, and I want to get to a couple of county and city issues first. And I'm sure classic, Brian being the bad host, are going to run out of time. But the how to inspire more patriotism in the country. I want to talk about that. Maybe we can think about it. Maybe I assume that we'll have to take a commercial break at some point. Mark is going to give me the red flag in a minute. But again, just to quickly recap with Greg Hansen. So in your service in the county, when were you elected, and when does your term end? Like where are we in your service here?
Well, I was appointed by Governor Scott in 2017.
That's right. We just talked about that.
Yeah, and then so I served for 2 years, and then I had to run, and I was elected. I served 4 years, and then I was elected again, reelected. And so I'm currently in my 9th year on the commission. And so if I decide to run again, it'll be 26. And at that point, I'll have 10 years on the commission.
So both of your terms are up in 2026.
Right.
Yes,
right. In the city council and on the county commission. Do you know what you want to do yet? Like, have you decided, yes, I'm going to run in 2026? Or not?
I have not decided yet.
I have not decided, and I have to make up my mind whether I want to be the oldest elected official in the state of Florida. And I don't think so that will weigh in my decision.
I have that same moniker. I'll give you that.
Very good. So maybe after the break, we can talk about a couple of issues. I for sure want to talk about the beach sand situation and the half cent. I know that Greg Hansen, you've been very vocal about that. This seems like the best solution. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about impact fees a little bit and about patriotism. And we'll hopefully you can stick around with us on Free for All Friday.
Are you wondering if that old paint in your garage is still any good?
Bring it in. We'll let you know.
And while you're at it, if you need to match a color,
chip off some paint and bring it in.
Our color matching is unmatched.
Benjamin Moore, corner of Old Kings and Utility Drive,
Palm Coast.
Flagler County is an awesome place to live, and we have so many exciting things to look forward to. Hi, I'm your Flagler County Commissioner, Leanne Pennington. Already we've been able to accomplish many things you may not be aware of. We've funded flood prevention efforts. We've protected environmentally sensitive land throughout the county. We've created new economic development incentives that will create new jobs, and we're one of the safest counties in the state of Florida. I'm Commissioner Leanne Pennington. Thank you for your support.
Craig Flagler Palms Funeral Home and Flagler Memorial Gardens creates unique personalized funeral or cremation memorials, has flexible chapel space for small to large capacity needs, a veteran cemetery section, as well as sections for a variety of faiths. Online at dignitymemorial.com.
Locals know where locals go.
For great music, dancing, fantastic food, and great times. You'll love these tunes.
Johnny D's Beach Bar and Grill. We're waiting for you.
Resetting your password. unsubscribing from emails, printing anything. Why are simple things sometimes so complicated? Thankfully, with an auto owner's insurance independent agent, getting the right coverage for your business doesn't have to be one of them, so you can get back to more important things, like learning how that printer works. That's simple human sense.
Hi, this is Donald O'Brien in Flagler County. Call the Hayward Brown Flagler Agency at 437-7767.
Welcome back to Free for All Friday. I'm your host, Brian McMillan, publisher of the Palm Coast Observer, and I have in the studio with me County Commissioner Greg Hansen and Palm Coast City Councilman Dave Sullivan. I want to give one quick Observer commercial, actually. So for the rest of the month and going up to July 4th, the Observer we're launching Observer fundraising. So for anyone who subscribes for driveway delivery, and yes, it is still free around the community, but if you want it on your driveway every week and that convenience, it's $52 a year. And if you subscribe now, we're going to donate $20 of every subscription to the Grace Community Food Pantry in Palm Coast. We're doing the same thing in Ormond Beach with the Jerry Dolliner Food Bank there. So if you're kind of want to give back to the food pantry and also get the Observer every week, now's a great time to subscribe. You can do it at observerlocalnews.com/subscribe. So David Ayers isn't here to tell me to stop doing that, so I'll just give myself a free commercial for the Observer. But also a way to benefit the $1 Million Foodathon. That's kind of all part of the project to help the Grace Community Food Pantry. Now, if I had thought of this idea just a day earlier, this would have been the time when I would have brought out my board game Battleship. I thought this would be so great. Bring out the Battleship games and just like see you guys go at it and see what happens. You know, B2, miss. I mean, that would be great. I don't know who do you think would win at Battleship? I don't know. What do you think? Have you ever played Battleship?
Was that a long time ago? But there are, we've all done war games, serious war games where you have the actual staffs who make decisions in the government and so on. So they're kind of like the same kind of thing. It's kind of interesting. The one I always liked was when the Orange forces were getting too tight. I'd say, we'll just lower the anchor off the aircraft carrier. Each link weighs 400 pounds. We'll just keep swinging that around and see how close the submarines want to get.
And I've played Battleship for real in Vietnam, so where we had to decide how to, because I think I was the only American in a group of Vietnamese ships, and we had to figure out where to put them.
I didn't know that.
And where to put them and what we're going to do with each and what the strategy was. And I lived with the Vietnamese for a year. So I got to play Battleship for real.
Do you think that experience would help you actually win at the game of Battleship?
No, not at all.
Probably
I don't think so.
All right. Let's talk about the beach sand. The headline in the Observer is no consensus. The Flagler County Commission, Heidi Petito mentioned that this plan has been in the works for a couple of years to try to figure out. So every coastal community in Florida has a beach management plan. How do you make sure that your beach is going to be restored if there's storms? Except for us, right? We're the only ones that don't
we have a plan. We have a plan.
It's not fully funded?
It's just not fully funded.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does it have to be?
Yes. Yeah, and I'd like to speak to that. But let me give you just one piece of background.
Please do.
So under our leadership, with Dave being part of that leadership, we established long-range plans for water management, for beach management, et cetera. All so that we had these plans in place, and we knew what it was going to cost to get them done. Mm-hmm. And so we did have a funding plan in place for the beach, and it did require a half-cent sales tax. Let me just say, it had to require a new flow of money coming from somewhere that it's not currently coming from. So this has all been in place, as you said, for years. We've been working on it. And we went through the, charge for the beach, charge for parking, charge for all our parks. And every one of them brought along not only extra expense in hiring people to do it and, software to do it and all that, but it got a lot of negative response from the public, So we finally decided on that the half-cent sales tax was not only a good solution, it's the fairest solution. So we shopped it to...
Who's we?
the previous commission.
The previous commission, okay.
So we shopped it around to the citizens of Flagler County, and then City of Palm Coast, and the City of Bunnell, and the City of Marineland, and the City of Beverly Beach, and the City of Flagler Beach. And it took a while, but we got buy-in from everybody on this. So we came up with a split of if we did it, how would we split the money? And Flagler, Palm Coast would give us roughly half of what it was, and Bunnell would give us roughly half, and then the other three cities would give us all of the proceeds from that half cent. And with that in place, what we did was established not a 1 year fix, but ad infinitum until we didn't need it anymore. We established that flow of money, that source of money. And there's a lot of talk about how long would you do a half-cent sales. It doesn't matter. I think I've heard 6 years. Do it for 6 years and then reevaluate. That works. Do it 10 years. We can do it up to 30, but that all works. The problem we have right now is, and like everything in government, it's got to be a collaborative process, and we don't have that on the county commission right now. We've got two commissioners that won't even talk about it. Well, you got to talk about it. You've got to at least look at the options. So if you don't have the half-cent sales tax and you want to do the full beach renourishment plan, then you got to add ad valorem tax into the deal. In other words, another stream of money. Well, in order to do that, I don't see the citizens of Flagler County approving that.
Yeah.
I think they're going to go nuts if we raise because we'd have to raise it almost one
a full mill.
So it really works out to about 0.88 we'd have to do, and that's significant. And monetarily, where the sales tax a family of four would be, I've read as low as $6 and as high as $14 a month. The ad valorem tax would be more than $1,000 per home ownership. So that's significant. And
one thought, as far as like the City of Palm Coast buy-in, I think that, to me, my thought was that was a little bit questionable how much there was City of Palm Coast buy-in. There was definitely some, and I think that eventually they would have come around, but it was kind of, they didn't ever.
Well, I think they have.
Now,
Dave's right here to ask him, but I think they have.
Yeah, I think at this point, remember, this is a courageous act that the county commissioners have to do. They're the only ones that can make this decision, and when it's explained, of course, Palm Coast and the other cities will support it because it's a critical issue. That's still, the decision has to be made by the county, and it's a tough one. Before I left in November of 24, I had agreed to this beach management plan that exists now, and the only thing was the funding. I wish we had voted on it back then. Yeah. We didn't, but here's where we are now. But you can't just throw all that work out the door. There was a lot of studying done, as Greg indicated. So that's where we stand.
So what are the possible solutions? Here, let me spitball a couple of them and see what you think about this.
So let me first point out, if we don't establish a new source of funding, if we don't, we'll be short every year in the neighborhood of $8 million a year. So that whenever you do the replenishment, and that's debatable, I think it should be at 6 years, to replenish at 6 years, but it could be 10, it could be 11.
Meaning to wait longer in between replenishments?
And all that does, if you're racking up failure to collect $8 million a year, right now at the 6 year point, we'd be short $55 million when it came time to pay the bill. There'd be $55 million that we don't have to pay for get the dredge in and do all that kind of stuff.
One of the biggest questions, I think, which is interesting because it's the same debate essentially with the Palm Coast impact fees, with transportation impact fees. How much money can we count on from the state getting with this? And considering what we just heard from Sam Greco, to me it seems like maybe we can't really count on as much from the state as maybe we would want to. But then if we don't count on money from the state and we try to raise it ourselves, then does the state say, oh, they're good. We're going to give some money to someone else.
Yeah,
How do you balance all that?
Well, we've had hours and hours of discussion on the transportation impact fees. We've really come to the conclusion, and we've decided over the next 25 years, about $30 million will come in the way of grants. So 25 into 30, that's $1 million to something like that a year. I don't think that's unreasonable. Route 100 just got about 11 or $12 million,
which is a state road. It's not the city's responsibility
at all.
That's what
we're talking about. If the city feels that State Road 100 needs more than what the state is willing to do, that would fall back to the city. For instance, we just got the right turn lane going eastbound on 100 onto Seminole Woods Road, and that was like an add-on that happened. So the idea, initially we thought maybe $50 million, and we reduced it to 25, and we compromised on 30. And if we didn't do that, the impact fees would be even higher.
Yeah. So there was some trying to balance, trying to make the home costs a little bit lower. We're not talking about affordable housing as a whole other issue, but my question with the beach plan, I think some of what a lot of people think is that people who live on the beach should pay more than the rest of us who don't live on the beach. And that is part of it, because there's this whole MSBU, the Metropolitan, no, what is it called? Municipal. What does it stand for?
Services Benefit
Unit. So right now that's about $160 per property owner, essentially.
Right. So fixed fee.
That's for the year.
Every year.
Every year, right. So to me, my own gut reaction is like, should that be higher for people on the beach?
We've looked at that. Matter of fact, we looked at keeping the MSBU at 160 and then establish an MSTU, taxable unit. And that would be based on property value.
So that's basically like a little bit of an extra millage rate for just people in a certain, right by the beach.
Yeah. And that would all of the 6,000 residents out there would actually, or parcels out there, would be taxed based on the value of that parcel.
So how is that? Does that not seem fair that if you are right on the beach, then you would pay more for the beach? I know that everybody benefits from the beach in some ways, but what's the downside of doing MSTU, like an extra tax on the beach?
Not much of a downside. That's why we're looking at it. But it doesn't fix the problem.
What if it was
we're $8 million short a year now. If we do the MSTU, that brings in another, and I don't have the exact number in my head, but it's around $2 million. So, okay, now we're $6 million short. Okay.
So what if you had a little less than a half cent? What if it was like a quarter cent?
Well, we've talked about that too. At a quarter cent. Right now, that would get us, let's see, half cent gets us 4.7 million, so almost $3 million. Okay, now we're only we're still $4 million short.
And everybody understands that sales tax gets divided up among
all the cities.
And actually, Palm Coast gets the biggest share of that.
Yeah. So the city of Palm Coast would get
they'd get less,
close to $3 million in their general fund to help pay for other things if we did the half cent. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, we have 3 county commissioners who are pretty against the half cent. And what I got from, we had Leanne Pennington on last week, but I think that there's others. The question is, so what other options are there? And I know that maybe one answer is there are no other options. The half cent is the only one.
Well, here's to just counter that. Okay, we have these naysayers on the commission, but they haven't come up with a plan. Their only plan is to not do the beach, not fund it. I mean, because if you don't do something, we're not going to have enough money to do the beach.
So just counting on enough state or federal funds to help is one potential. It's risky, but that's one potential.
I haven't
about it.
I've been looking in this budget and I haven't found it yet. I should have asked Sam while we had him on. But every year they put a certain amount of money into the beach replenishment for the whole state.
Mm-hmm.
And last year they singled out Flagler Beach as one of the recipients that should get some of that pot of money. So, and we got $35 million. So I would like to. I need to see that. I haven't found it. I'm sure it's in there, but I haven't found it yet.
Whether that is going to come again? Yeah.
And will it come every year? So
well, the MSTU. I mean, at some point you could make up the difference if you increase the MSTU enough. I remember at one of the workshops there was a discussion where it seems like the smaller towns, the Beverly Beach and Marineland, maybe it was mostly Beverly Beach, but if there were some residents who couldn't afford to even help, like the 160, even the yearly, seemed like it was going to be too costly, that they might even try to help subsidize.
Well, I will predict
and give grants.
If we inaugurate an MSTU, the only people that will pay it will be the unincorporated county, because Flagler Beach will just say no. That's they only have 4,000 residents, and they're kind of taxed out at the moment.
Yeah.
And they have sort of agreed to the 160 for the MSPU. They haven't agreed to it yet, but they've sort of agreed to that. Beverly Beach has sort of agreed to it, but they figure they're going to have to pay for some of it out of their city funds, out of their reserve.
What if the MSTU applied only to above the first 1,000 square feet of your home, or above maybe there's an exemption of so that the least the lowest property value homes, they would pay even less than a normal millage rate or something like that.
Yeah, we'd already worked that in. The lower cost houses would actually under an MST would pay nothing. We've already worked that in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So and I think the highest, as I recall, and we've been working on this for 2 years.
Yeah.
but under the MSTU, the highest tax property out there would pay $2,000 a year more, which is significant.
Yeah.
But because the property taxes are already high out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they already pay 33% of all the ad valorem tax comes from the Outer Banks or islands. So they're already being taxed like crazy.
So what's the message to, if you say the people who live west of 95, west of Belterre, even west side of the county, who might say well, we don't think we should really have to pay anything for the beach. What's the reaction to that?
Well, under the plan that Dave and I and the rest of us heard, they would pay nothing
except for the sales tax, right? If there is a sales tax.
half-cent sales tax, but like I said, that's negligible. Half-cent sale point, that's half a penny.
So
that's negligible?
Is that really the answer? Just to maybe instead of talking about the half cent, we need to be talking about the total dollar amount that you're likely to pay. Like an extra half cent is probably going to cost you X amount of dollars a year or X amount of dollars a month.
Well, that's what I keep saying. It is actually minimal. And what when I discussed this with the last Speaker of the House, he said, "Greg, it's the fairest way to go because it's a tax that's decided upon by the user.
Mm-hmm.
Am I gonna go out to eat, or am I gonna go buy stuff at the grocery store? Because the grocery store is not tax free.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now with the governor making tax free holidays bigger, and so it has very little impact on a family of four. Like I said, it might be $14 a month, but I've seen it as low as $6 a month as maybe the impact on a family of four.
Yeah, I also think that the window for the county being able to do this with a 4-1 vote on the board is closing. There are 27 counties eligible to do this. 26 have done it. We're the only one that hasn't done it. Not that proves anything, but I guess they're all don't know what they're doing, and we're smarter than they are.
Yeah. So to conclude, I know we're about out of time, but Greg, you were one of the impromptu guest speakers at the Flag Day ceremony at the Elks Club, and I was there for that. And I was just wondering, in our day and age, there's a lot of negativity in general. People look at, upset with national politics. upset with, our role in the world over the past even some decades. What do you do to try to instill and help people to feel more patriotic, more proud of our country instead of focusing on that stuff?
Well, there's two ways to look at it. One, a long-range plan, and that would be the Pledge of Allegiance in schools.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why we don't do that anymore. And also a pretty solid historical base on how this country was formed, because I don't believe we do that anymore. And I can't speak to it because I'm not on the school board or anything. But from articles I've read across the United States, we're just not teaching that anymore. And I really think that if you taught, it would put the whole thing in context for young people as they get older. Oh, yeah, I kind of remember that, how we did it, why we did that. Why do we have a Constitution?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we have a Declaration of Independence? Why is that? And why do we have them today still today? So that's the long-range plan. Going forward, I think we have some places like the American Flag Project, and which is kind of fun. I'm on their board, and it's kind of fun, just trying to get as many American flags out there as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good. It's a small piece, but it works. It's kind of good to see flags out everywhere. And I don't know. It's always going to boil down to education.
Yeah.
I think on patriotism, because you got to. Why be patriotic? Well, because I understand how this country was formed and why we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really think that's the key. And just getting smarter. Every one of our cities and counties and the sheriff, we all offer classes where you can come in and learn about everything in Palm Coast, why the government works and all that. We do it also in the county, and the sheriff does it. Those are good programs to figure out. If you understand how the government works, and you might be proud of that. You might be proud of your government. So,
thank you very much, Greg. What about you, Mr.
Well,
Sullivan?
obviously I agree with what Greg said, but I think there's a couple other points. We don't want to associate patriotism with one party or the other.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, it should be independent of that. And back to my point I made before on respect for your family, respect for other people's views. And I think those are things, and including your religion plays into it too, your family values. So in addition to the education, I think at some point here we have to be very careful, because it seems like we're moving in that direction politically right now, where one party is in favor of the flag and the Constitution and all that. The other party, they're doing it to themselves in some ways, keeps talking about how bad the United States is and all the things that are wrong. It's okay to point that out, but do it in a respectful way. And I think that could be a big help too.
Yeah, very good. I appreciate the perspective, and especially, the years in 27 and 28 in the Navy, serving our country and serving the communities, serving the community in such a great way. I know there's a lot of hours, a lot of nights, a lot of time being spent to try to make the community a better place. And so I appreciate what you guys do.
Well, it's just a part-time job.
That's what I've heard. My 2 cents on the patriotism idea, and again, thank you all for joining us on Free for All Friday, wrapping up. But I think that sometimes people focus on what the country, what politicians do, and less on what the country stands for and what are the ideals that we're striving for. Justice for all and things like that. If we focused more on that, then I think that those are ideas that hopefully everybody can get behind, and that's what we're banding together, and that's what makes us united, is those ideals that we believe in, kind of like the mission statement of the country. Hopefully we believe in that, and whether we feel like politicians or our decisions are following those ideals, that doesn't change what the ideals are and what we should all strive for as a rule. So that's my 2 cents. And July 4th is coming up, so it's a great time to reflect, especially in the next couple of weeks on that. Again, thank you for joining me. Greg and Dave.
Thank you, Brian.
My pleasure. I always enjoy these.
All right. Very good. Have a great weekend, everybody.